Okay, I guess we'll get started. People can just come in late whenever they come in. So today we're going to be learning about chapter 10, which is about belief. So how we create beliefs, how we protect them, how hard it is to change them, even when reality is kind of trying to knock at our skull and tell us that we're believing the wrong thing. So we're going to learn not through me lecturing at you, well, maybe partially, but through kind of a human story. So we have a special visitor, Jeffrey, who's going to tell us about his experience with alcoholism and recovery. So his story illustrates what we're going to talk about today. So he's going to tell us his story, and then we're going to go through some sort of concepts from the chapter and kind of illustrate how it affected his life. So just when you're listening, you don't have to write anything down or anything, but just pay attention to like the reasons he gives for his drinking, interactions with other people, sort of like the turning point, what changed for him, that kind of thing as we go along. So, and then after he's done telling his story, we'll analyze it and kind of go on from there. Okay, so Jeffrey, thank you for being here, and take it away.
So, hello everyone. My name is Jeffrey. I am a grateful, recovered alcoholic. My story started way before I even picked up a drink. And so I was born in Torrance, California, raised in Redondo Beach, California. So it wasn't like, I wasn't like forced into anything bad or anything. Like I had a mom and a dad. I have two brothers, an older one and a younger one. And so just, basic stories of growing up. As a child, I was a short, chubby kid. So I was bullied a lot. At times I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. And, I felt really insecure. And that bled into other areas of my life. So, growing up, I found that sports was my outlet in life. I loved baseball. My first sport was soccer, and then it went basketball, baseball, hockey, like almost any sport you can imagine I played. And that's where I felt belonged, like I started making friends that way. I found a niche that, I was actually pretty good at sports too. So that was my outlet, and that's where I felt belonged, and that carried me through my childhood a lot, growing up at about age 12, my parents started fighting a lot, and that really hurt, and that bothered me a lot because I'd see my friends' families' parents. They were always like loving each other and stuff like that. Even though my parents did that outside the house, my parents would argue a lot, but behind closed doors, and they put on a front that everything was good, but in reality it wasn't. I'll fast forward a little bit, but when I was 18 years old, me and my brothers, we knew something was up. We couldn't put our finger on it. When I turned 18, my mom decided to tell me that they were both divorced. And they said that they were divorced since I was 12. They held it close, really good, because they lived in the same house, they lived in the same bed. But you have to put a lot of pressure on us kids because they held a secret for almost 6 years, and that's something that those are the people that you should trust the most. Playing baseball was my life. I played all 4 years of high school. I also made it into college with an athletic scholarship to play baseball at Dominguez Hills. The month going into college, I got my first DUI. Like I said, I was 18 years old, so I was underage. I shouldn't even been drinking, first of all, and I got a DUI. So I hit a couple parked cars. My dad ended up paying for all that stuff, and I literally sat in a holding cell for 2 or 3 hours. Right? I should have went straight to jail. I should have went to county, did my time there. But my dad had all these lawyers lined up that he got me out of there. He wanted me to go to college, play baseball in college, and he graduated from SC. So he didn't want that reputation of his son going to jail and missing the chance to play baseball and go to college. So he got me out real quick. So that hurt me big time because I didn't even get a slap on the wrist. I just was like, okay, I can get away with it. Why stop now? I just kept drinking and driving, because I had that safety net from my dad paying paying everything down, and I never really got in trouble. But there were times like showing up to practice, I was hungover. I didn't, I could have put more time into my craft, but I decided to drink, Like I said, I had an athletic scholarship, so I was actually pretty good. I loved it. I worked hard. So I actually got drafted to play for the Atlanta Braves organization. And I spent about 3 weeks with them, 4 weeks or whatever. And through that time, I stopped drinking the hard alcohol. So I was only drinking beer, right? Like that's the right thing to do, During those 3 or 4 weeks, I was actually running in the outfield with the pitchers, since I love to pitch. And I ended up stepping in a glove roll. I tore my ACL and MCL. I was 22 years old at the time. And like I said, that was God. He put that glove roll right in front of me, and I just tore my ACL. The reason why, I say that is that being a professional athlete means a lot of money. And with me having that alcoholism in me, I wasn't like a full-blown alcoholic like I was at the end, but I had that ism in me. And if I got paid millions of dollars, do you guys have any idea where I would be? Yeah, I'd be 6 feet under the ground. I would have drank myself to death. It wouldn't have been a question, right? Or jail, driving drunk, killing somebody, ruining my family's name. And that was a blessing. God put that gopher hole in my way for a reason. And so, they actually, the Braves did pay for my, all my expenses. They paid for the surgery. They paid for my physical therapy. But when I got back after the physical therapy and I got back, I was strong, probably stronger than before. But the legal people at the Braves organization and the coaches and all those people sat me down and they told me, due to the severity of your injury, we cannot invest in you. So I was 22 years old and I just said, F the world, F God, F my family, just nothing. I didn't care. Because I did put all my eggs in that one basket of becoming a professional. I was a baseball. I wasn't in school to be in school. I was getting bare minimum grades just to keep that scholarship. And I cheated my way through. And so at age 22, I just went straight to that bottle. Like I said, I had that ism in me, so I was already heading downhill. So from age 22 to about 28, I had odd jobs, right? I was a window washer. I was a door-to-door salesman. It was terrible. I did not like it. I just was just like, this sucks. So I literally thought I was going to die an alcoholic. But when I was 28, I decided to go to my first treatment center. It was a 90-day program. And so the 90-day program, it doesn't work. I did the 90-day program basically to get my mom and dad off my back. I was definitely not there to do it for myself, which doesn't work. So I did the 90-day program, got out, didn't have a sponsor, didn't have any support group. I didn't go to meetings. I didn't do anything. I just was like, okay. So I was dry for 6 months. Dry means you're just living life, drinking, without alcohol, like no praying, no groups, no nothing, no support. So after the 6 months of dryness, I decided, that, I can have a couple drinks. I can have one drink, maybe two, right? Now those 2 drinks ended up turning into a blackout and another for a 3-year blackout, right? I just couldn't put down the alcohol. Like one drink, it's not enough, for an alcoholic like me. So, 3 years goes by, so now I'm 30 years old. I get my second DUI. And this is where it gets insane, like insanity, right? So I get pulled over, I'm on the freeway, I'm lost going to Riverside from Redondo Beach on the freeway. And a cop's behind me, and then I'm like, okay, I still have some alcohol in a bottle right next to me, so I'm just like, well, I'm already screwed, so might as well finish this off too, so I don't have to get an empty, open container in my car. So I'm getting pulled over. I'm just sipping the rest of it. I threw it in the back, and the cop tells me, he said, "Where are you coming from?" I put all those questions, and they're like, "Yeah, there's a concerned citizen following you for 10 miles, and you're swerving." And I was like, "Okay." They take me to the holding cell. They take my, alcohol breath, and I got popped, and I'm in the drunk tank. My dad doesn't want anything to do with me because I took all his money and this and that. So I'm called my mom. So she drives out to Riverside to pick me up. Then I get on the way home is probably the worst car ride home. It's super quiet. My mom's super disgusted in me, and I'm just like, oh man, this sucks. But I just can't stop drinking. So 2 days later, she takes me back up there to get my car out of the impound. And this is where it gets sad. I get the car. She tells me to stay behind me because now my license is suspended. I shouldn't be driving. They have my license, so she just says, stay behind me and we'll get you home. I decide to look. I'm already thinking like, I'm looking for the first liquor store or store that sells liquor. I pull in real quick, get a bottle, jump back in. My mom calls me. She's like, where were you? I'm like, oh, I got stuck at a light. Just BSing my mom. And so now I'm driving drunk home with a suspended license. And if I got caught, I'm going straight to jail. There's no getting out of this one. I do make it home. So then another, 2 years goes by, just bumming off my mom, couch surfing, doing this, doing nothing, just barely making it through life, right? And now I'm 32 years old, living on my mother's couch, right? And I get tricked. I guess I get tricked into going to my second rehab. I do the 90-day program again, just to get my family off my back. That doesn't work. 2 more years later, I do have a God moment. I do have a God shot. I am living on my mother's couch at age 34. And I'm on the couch, and my mom comes in, and I'm just sitting there hurt, like dry heaving. Can't hold anything down. And she comes in there and asks me, she's like, what's wrong? I'm just like, you know what? This is it, right? Like, I don't know at the time why I said this, but I do now. So I ended up pointing at this Gatorade bottle that I had, and it was full of vodka, just full to the top. And I point to it and I tell my mom that there's alcohol in that, right? She looks at me, she's like, I know, like I was fooling somebody, right? And I told her, I was like, it doesn't work anymore. The alcohol does not cure hangovers. It doesn't stop my mind from racing. It just doesn't work. I can't hold it down. So right then and there, I said, I need help, and we both looked at each other and we're just like, if you don't need, like, I'm gonna die, So we're looking at places. One of the places said it was like a 6-month waiting period. And we were just like, no, we're gonna die before that. So we had to keep calling places. And we even called the hotline, We were in that desperate mode. And so we called this place called the Beacon House. It's in San Pedro, California. It's free. All you need to do is have Medi-Cal insurance, and you get in there. I remember calling them. At the time, I still couldn't stop drinking. So it was like another 2 weeks of just drinking, even looking for spots to go. I just couldn't stop. So after the 2 weeks, we got a hold of them. They called me back and they asked me, how much have you been drinking? This and that. Are you doing anything else? And I said, no. And then they're like, since you're drinking that much, like I was up to like a handle a day. So like two fifths of vodka a day. And so they told me, you need to go to detox. And I was like, okay, we'll see how that goes. So they take me to detox because the only way you can get off alcohol that I was drinking that much, you're gonna have seizures unless you have like 24-hour care. You're gonna die. You can have a seizure and die because you're drinking alcohol. So, I'm in detox for about 3 days. They're pumping me full of Ativan. It's like a Valium, type thing. So I'm in there for 3 days. Luckily, they still had a bed because it's a good program. So people try to get into this program unwillingly, right? Because the funny thing is the rules that they supposedly told me, well, and they did, but I just was so out of it. They said it's a long-term treatment center. They take your phone away. There's no contact with your family for a year. And if I realized what they said, I probably wouldn't have went, right? So God again had my back. You're not listening to these rules, or you're gonna leave. So I get there. I remember filling out the paperwork, signing my name and stuff, but the next 3-4 weeks were just a blur. I remember hearing from other residents and counselors still to this day tell me that I could not put a full sentence together for 3 weeks. Literally, I was mumbling my words. I couldn't talk, and I was just like, wow, like that's wet brain. Like there's no way around it. So they still joke about it, but it's okay. And so the Beacon House is a social model program, which means everybody knows everything about you. Like there's groups where you get called out for lying or dishonesty and being sneaky, or just everything you can imagine. Talking back to people, like everything comes out. So you're held accountable for this stuff, and it really helped. It took me a few months to buy into the program, probably 6 months, because when I first got there, everybody was happy. Everyone's just happy-go-lucky, and I'm just like, this is a joke. Like, how are these people? These are supposed to be addicts and alcoholics, and it turns out that that's what that program does. It changes people, and it changes your thinking. And being there, I was also to be able to do some core work on myself. Like there was, we went through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps. The 4th and 5th step are probably the most important, which are, it's just an inventory of your whole life. The steps that, like you put into perspective, like why you treat people the way you treat people, how you treat other people, and the harm that you've caused people. The biggest thing was the amend process for me, right? It took me, the average of graduating that program was 12 to 15 months. I did it in 15 months, and because at first I was a knucklehead. I was a person that battled. I like to talk back. I was also the yeah guy. I got this guy at the beginning. Counselors hated that. And so after doing the graduation, you get to set up amends with your family members or the people that you caused harm to. And my first amends right off the bat was my mother. I caused this lady harm. Like it was really bad at the end there. She was scared to death, And after I made the amends, you give the opportunity to this person to get anything off their chest. Like done so much work in that program that anything they say, we probably already know we've done this to them, right? So my mother actually got a chance to get some stuff off her chest, which was pretty interesting. The first thing she did was call me a hostage taker, right? Not physically. I never put hands on this woman, never held her physically, right? But emotionally, I held her hostage. I kept her from retiring. I kept her from going on vacation. And she was hurt. Like she was afraid to come home from work to find me dead on the couch because I drank myself to death. And those, and then I made amends to my brothers, my father, their wives. And it was sad, like I did all this to these people and I knew I was doing it to these people. That's the sad part. I just I was stuck in my own world. I didn't care what anybody else thought. And, even my older brother, I got two bits and pieces of the spectrum from my brothers. My older brother, he actually apologized to me for not pushing me harder enough to get into programs. And my younger brother, he actually gave up on me. But we were super close, like we would go fishing a lot, but he just gave up on trying to help me, and that's sad. We're like best friends now, so. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about it now, is the hope, right? The where all this really ends up, right? Like during the program, after I graduated, they allow you to go to school, go to family events, and I chose to go back and get my degree in kinesiology. And I had about 2 years left because those 4 years, like I said, I got grades that weren't even passing. So I went back, I decided to go after it. I turned a 2.3 GPA into a 3.2 in 2 years. And that's basically all A's in every class. Full-time, 15 units each semester. So you can do the math. There was a lot of hard work going on there. And obviously it was easier because I was clean. I was sober. I was able to, I learned how to handle life with other distractions going on in your life. I also get invited to family gatherings now without guilt. Christmas, birthday parties. They actually want me there instead of just out of spite because I'm their brother or son, so that's a blessing. I get to see my brother's kids because before my older brother had a son that, I probably saw maybe 3 times, because he was like super young and they didn't want me around. And my younger brother had a daughter while I was in treatment, so she's never seen me drunk, but I get to see her quite often, and she invited me to go to her birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese the other day, and it was super fun, just taking pictures with them. Like they're posting it on Facebook now, and I'm just like, wow, this is cool. So another thing is that I'm in my first semester of grad school at Cal Baptist University. I passed my first 2 classes with A's. Super blessed with that. It's so hard, but it's worth it. I say it's hard because there's a lot of work, right? But grad school is different because you pick that subject, and all the classes that you're doing are the ones that you like. Like they're not taking general eds, you're not doing any of that stuff. In my opinion, it's easier than getting my bachelor's, but that's me. It's just a little extra work, a lot of research and all that stuff, but I love it. And what else? I found hobbies. I love to fish. I love to go to the gym. I swim a lot. And I like to stay healthy. I eat healthy. I was on an energy drink binge for a few months. I stopped doing that. My life is great. And I thank God every single day. I have morning routines now where I get up, I pray, I meditate. And it's wonderful. So thank you for allowing me to speak. And
all right, so don't think too hard. Just real quick, what stands out to you? What do you remember the most? What made you emotional or surprised you?
Family acceptance.
The family acceptance. Okay, so the benefit of being sober, that his family accepted him. What else?
The hope, so life changing.
The hope, life changing, yeah. Yeah.
And motivation to stay clean.
Yes, and all of that's leading to the motivation to stay clean, right? Because if he wasn't clean again, then your family wouldn't allow you to be around the kids or anything like that. Anything else?
Believe that he can do it.
The belief that he can do it. Okay, those are great. So we've heard his story. Now let's look at how it happened, how he got trapped into this belief cycle that he had, because his beliefs are part of the addiction process, part of the alcoholism, right? So the first thing that happens is that we create beliefs, okay? And we can create beliefs in a lot of different ways. Basically, we categorize it into system 1 thinking and system 2 thinking. So system 1 thinking, if I have markers, is, gosh, this is the worst board in the world, isn't it? System 1 is where you kind of intuitively come up with beliefs. You don't think it through, you just intuit it. You look for patterns, and the belief just kind of appears on its own without a lot of thought. This is faster thinking. It's also error-prone thinking. And this is the way that we tend to think, is with system 1. With system 2, this is where we logically analyze and think through things. Most beliefs are not made with system 2 thinking, which is unfortunate. This is made with system 1. And there's a lot of errors, there's a lot of biases, a lot of crap that is in system 1 thinking. But system 2, logical thinking, it's slower, it's more difficult, it takes more effort, you need more data, okay? So we're gonna talk about some of the problems that arise in system 1 thinking. And the first one is post hoc thinking, or sometimes also called post hocery. Okay, and this comes from a Latin saying, post hoc ergo propter hoc. So that's after this, therefore because of this. And so what post hoc is, it's this idea that we construct explanations after an event occurs. And then we mistake these rationalizations for genuine understanding of why something happened. Okay, so it's already happened, we explain it, and then those explanations must be the real reason, and we understand it. Sometimes we're right, but many times we're not right, and we can easily mistake those post hoc reasons for the truth. Okay, so do you guys, what reasons do you think he had for drinking? What reasons did you hear as he was speaking?
Divorce, the lies.
The divorce and the lies. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
The stress that came with his injury.
The stress that came with the injury. Good. Anything else? So walk me through like a specific time you were drinking. You want to come in so you get in the video? You can still sit there if you
Yeah.
want. Okay, whatever you want to do. So walk me through like a specific time you were drinking. What story did you tell yourself at that moment about why you were drinking?
First one was alcohol was legal, and it was socially accepted, and everyone's doing it, right? I don't see a problem with it. It's not drugs, it's alcohol, right?
And so at the time, it wasn't the stress of the divorce, it wasn't the losing baseball, the injury, anything like that. Okay.
At first, no.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, how
Oh, good question.
That's a great question. I actually forgot about that. So when I was 15 years old, I got drunk for the first time. I was at the Colorado River, and I probably had like 8 beers, right? I was 15 years old, so obviously that's a ton back then. But I remember getting so sunburned, right? Because I was having so much fun and this and that. And I remember waking up the next morning, like at 5 in the morning, my dad was taking us fishing, and I couldn't move, I just couldn't move. It was hurt so bad. And my first thought was, I had so much fun, let's do it again. So, and right then and there, I had that. I didn't touch an alcoholic drink till I was like 18 years old. I smoked a lot of weed before I was an alcoholic, but I didn't drink for 3 years after that. But that was always in the back of my head. Like I had that drink. If I get that drink, I had that feeling of just like letting go, right, of everything.
Yeah. So this
Does that answer your
is-
question? So I'll answer it. I'll go further.
for it.
sorry, like the second part is like, how did you start drinking again at 18?
Okay, it's about fitting in, right? Like I like going to parties. I like to fit in, I want to be part of the crowd, and I like to drink, and I saw everyone else doing it, and I just was like, why not?
Okay, so these are the reasons that he was coming up with in the moment. He wanted to have fun, he wanted to fit in. It's not that big of a deal, it's legal, so
remember when I was talking about my DUI too, and I got that DUI and my dad paid for everything, and I had no consequences. I just said, why not? Why stop now? I just kept drinking because I knew if I got caught again, I was just going to call my dad. So
Is the out.
yeah, I had an outlet for sure.
So the post hoc reasoning, the development of the incorrect beliefs, right, of why he was drinking. Really what it was about was all the stress and the trauma and the divorce and all that. That was the real reason he was drinking. But in the moment, he was constructing incorrect beliefs about what was actually happening, okay? So at the time, did you realize that those were just excuses, or did it feel like they were valid explanations?
No, I was making things up in my head probably. So.
Yeah, probably. Okay. So at the time, it kind of feels true. And I think probably the more extreme the gap is between the truth and the lies that you're telling yourself, probably the more often reality kind of breaks in. So you kind of get a sense that you're lying to yourself. But many times with post hoc beliefs, we don't actually realize that we are lying to ourselves. We're not consciously doing it. We're just trying to understand the situation. And then our brain kind of picks up on beliefs that are the most comfortable, and then we just kind of run with it, okay? So that's post hoc belief. So another thing, do I have that written down? Yeah. So another thing that affects us is overconfidence bias. Sorry. So overconfidence bias is the idea that you understand things more than you actually do. You think that you understand things. You overestimate your ability to control a situation, to understand the situation, and you underestimate the extent of the problem. Okay. And interestingly enough, the smarter you are, the more educated you are, and the more of an expert you are in the area that you have the confidence in, the more likely you are to commit this bias. So us smart, educated people tend to think more highly of ourselves than is actually what the truth is. Okay, so keep that in mind. The smarter you are, the more likely you are to make this error. Okay, so did you see overconfidence in his story at all? Say it louder.
When he said that he basically wasn't willing to accept the help.
When he wasn't willing to accept the help, okay, he thought he could do it on his own. Yeah.
By putting so much faith in like the sports career that they didn't consider any like alternatives.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Okay, so overconfidence in the future of being in athletics. Yeah, for sure. Yes. Tell us about the time when you came out of your first treatment program and you started drinking. Did you feel like you could control it, or did you know like, oh, this is going to ruin my 6 months of recovery and I'm going to be in a 3-year blackout?
No, I literally thought I can handle 1 or 2 drinks at a time. You know, I literally was like, yeah, I can handle that. No?
But you couldn't.
No.
Okay. So that gap between what he believed would happen and what actually happened is overconfidence, right? He overestimated his ability to control his drinking, underestimated the extent of the drinking problem that he had, which is something that you see with addiction all the time, okay? Where people overestimate their ability. I could quit anytime I wanted. And no, you actually try it. I bet you're not right, okay? So that kind of solidifies your belief, okay? So what we're seeing so far is, right, he creates these post hoc explanations for his belief. He's overconfident in how accurate they are. He's overconfident in his ability to control the situation. But they're not conscious lies that he's telling himself. In the moment, he really believed it, okay? But he has to tell himself these lies because otherwise he wouldn't be able to drink. So it's this rationalization process in order to have our beliefs, to keep them safe, to protect them, okay? Another thing that we do to protect our beliefs is confirmation bias. I'll pretend I'm writing that down so he doesn't have to move. Okay, confirmation bias. So we want to protect our beliefs. Our brain works to protect our beliefs by filtering out selective evidence. So we want to confirm what we already believe. It takes a lot of energy and effort to challenge our beliefs. Okay? As you know, by college students, us teachers are always challenging your beliefs, and it's annoying because it's tiring. And so in our lives, we do that with our beliefs. So tell me about the people that you drink with. What were they like? What were your friends like?
The people I hung out with were people that drank just as much as me, or if not more. because that would make me feel better, right? I also hung around drug users, right? And even though I didn't use drugs, I would sit there with a handle of vodka, just slouched over and just judging these people, right? Thinking like I was better than them because I don't have a needle in my arm, or I don't have a glass device in my hand because I'm doing something legal. You know, I'm not a junkie, but I'm probably 10 times worse than this person. Like I'm killing myself. But I would hang around people that were worse than me so I can make myself feel better.
Okay, and actually, I guess I kind of skipped from confirmation bias to echo chamber, because what he's describing there is what we would call an echo chamber. You guys probably heard that? Talk about it a lot with social media, because we kind of have an artificial echo chamber made for us on social media with the algorithms, where it shows us what we want to see, what we're already looking at, and it takes away information that might be challenging or less interesting to us, and so we don't get other viewpoints. Okay, and so we often create that for ourselves, an echo chamber for ourselves, where we are only bringing in the information that we want to see. We're not even filtering out contradictory evidence. There is no contradictory evidence with an echo chamber. And so I assume none of your friends had a problem with your drinking.
Absolutely not.
No. And did any of them ever express any concern?
Just my family.
Just your family. Okay. So he surrounded himself with people who weren't going to challenge his belief.
Yep.
Do you think if you had friends who challenged your beliefs that it would have... No?
Nope.
No. Because then you would have gone to the confirmation bias.
Yes. So the only people that I actually listen to are the people, like my own people, right? Alcoholics, and because they know what I'm going through. Normies is what we call people that can handle alcohol and stuff. They don't know what we've been through, right? So the only, you can tell me all you want. I wasn't going to listen. It's just how it was.
So he was filtering out any of the evidence. Was there a time when one of your brothers or somebody said that they thought you had a problem?
Yes.
So how did that go? How did you react to it?
So one of my weed dealers actually told me that I was drinking too much, right? And so I was like, whoa, I'm not gonna, how does this work? You know, like, anyways, that was pretty funny. And I was just like, whatever, blew that off. But I stopped hanging around my family, my brothers, because I didn't want them to see me the way I was, right? I didn't want them to challenge my thinking and want me and trick me to going into a treatment center, because in reality, I didn't want to. I was so stuck. So.
Okay, so that's confirmation bias and echo chamber in action, kind of working together. Confirmation bias, the contradictory evidence that's coming in, he filters out, he explains it away, he dismisses it, he laughs at it, he says, you don't understand what I'm going through, you're a normie or whatever, so you don't get it. And then instead, he surrounds himself with people who won't even bring up contradictory evidence. Why didn't you want contradictory evidence? How did it make you feel when people brought up your problem?
I felt less than, I didn't want to, I felt degraded, right? I felt like a bum, basically, when they told me this. I was just like, get away from me, right?
So it was really painful
Yes.
to hear that, okay? So he was dismissing evidence that contradicted what he believed, not because he was like stupid or whatever, but because this is how the brain works, okay? This is actually normal psychological behavior for human beings, okay? This is how all of our brains work. That's something that you need to keep in mind, is that these errors, these biases that we have, they're not unusual. They happen with you. They happen with everybody. It doesn't matter whether you have an addiction or part of a religion or whatever. They're happening with all of our beliefs, okay? Sometimes we have correct beliefs, and then they can protect our good beliefs, but many times we have bad beliefs, and then these biases are protecting our bad beliefs, which then, of course, gets us into trouble, okay? And the crucial insight is it doesn't feel like you're lying to yourself when you're in the middle of it. When you're doing confirmation bias, sometimes you might realize, or sometimes you get some niggling doubts. We talk about Scientology in here, right, and cults. So there were times when there was doubts, but there was also times where there was a lot of confidence, overconfidence. of their understanding of the situation and so on that kept them within that belief structure. Okay, and so it is normal for our mind to work this way. Once a belief is formed, your brain works hard to protect it, filters out evidence, or gets you into a situation where those beliefs don't even get challenged at all. Okay, so confirmation bias, echo chamber. We also have hindsight bias, and kind of similar to post hockery. It's not creating beliefs, but it's this tendency to see the past events as more predictable than they actually were at the time. Like I knew it all along. This makes sense. And so this is kind of a feeling of reconfirming our beliefs. Like obviously this was the way it was going to be. Okay. So basically in a short way, it's seeing the past as more predictable than it was. Okay. It makes more sense now than it does. So now that you're in recovery, okay, does it seem obvious to you guys that he had a problem from the very beginning? I mean, a 15-year-old drinking 8 beers, his very first time drinking. Okay, and the emotional reaction he had to it, right? That seems obvious now, right? But did it seem obvious? Were you like, wow, I have an alcoholism problem at 15?
Even getting my DUI when I was 18, like no normal person is getting DUIs underage at 18. So that should have been a wake-up call right there, but it wasn't.
Okay. Now it seems obvious, right? That's the hindsight bias. And so we have to remember that we don't often see things correctly at the time. Okay. So, let's see, what's the next thing here? Okay, so we've got this like full cycle of belief protection, right? We create the beliefs with post hockery, we overestimate our control, we filter out evidence, we surround ourselves with people who confirm what we want to believe. And then, we've created this like airtight system that reality has a very hard time breaking in on. Okay? And you can think about this for yourselves too. This goes beyond addiction. So your religion, your political beliefs, your belief about the opposite sex, all of these beliefs, this system works this way, and it can become very resistant to change, which can be very problematic if you have an incorrect, or as in his case, a harmful belief. Okay. So one thing that we can do to change things is what we call a prediction test. Okay, so we should all be doing things like this and having the attitude of challenging our own beliefs. So prediction test is the idea that real understanding allows you to predict the future, whereas post hoc beliefs only explain what happened in the past. Okay, so true understanding explains the future. So for instance, with Jeffrey, with his alcoholism, when he was drinking, he couldn't predict what was going to happen, right? So when you drank the first time after your first recovery, he believed that he could handle the 2 drinks, but he was wrong, right? So that's like the smoke and gun of the prediction test, that his understanding of his drinking was incorrect, because otherwise he would have known what was going to happen. And now at this point in recovery, if you go to a bar and have 1 drink, do you know what would happen?
Yes.
What would happen?
I would die.
You would die. Okay, because he would start drinking and he wouldn't stop.
Yeah, I would pick up right where I left off at. So it wouldn't be question.
So he knows exactly what would happen at this point, because now he has true understanding. Okay, so his recovery program, you remember the system 1 thinking, system 2? His recovery program put him into system 2 thinking, where he had to logically go through, analyze things, deeply analyze things, in order to understand what happened, which is why he has great insight about it now, whereas he didn't have that insight in the first place. And now his beliefs pass a prediction test. Now they're accurate in understanding what's going to happen if he violates one of his rules. Okay, so see the difference, that real understanding involves predictive power. Okay, so let's talk about what actually changed. What do you guys remember? What was the specific turning point for him, where his false beliefs became obvious that this wasn't going to work anymore? You guys remember?
It didn't help. The alcohol didn't help anymore.
The alcohol didn't help anymore. Okay, so he was waking up in terrible pain, dry heaving, horrendous hangovers. And with alcoholism, you wake up feeling like miserable, and then you immediately drink once you wake up in order to stop that misery. And it didn't stop the misery anymore. Okay, so what made that moment different from all the other times that you were drinking, or you woke up in the morning feeling like crap? What was different about now suddenly the pain won't go away? Why did that make a difference for you?
I knew I needed help.
Mhm.
It was time, and something just clicked, right? Obviously, I found God, right? God was speaking through me. It obviously wasn't me because I'm an alcoholic. I wanted to keep drinking, but something through me spoke, and that's what happened. There's obviously a higher power, right? Because that was not Jeffrey. It was not Jeffrey.
So an external disruption, okay, that's what we call this, an external disruption. He had this airtight system he created, and something had to come in and disrupt it in order for him to be willing to, in order for reality to wiggle its way in. Okay, there had to be a crack in that system. And so he had two, basically. One is he had a spiritual awakening in a sense. And then two is that he realized that physically he couldn't keep this going. Okay, that he was going to die. Correct? Yeah. So he felt like this wasn't going to work anymore. I'm going to die if this keeps going. I can't keep doing this. Okay. Could you have reasoned your way out of that? Could you have logicked your way out of that situation? No. You probably had tried doing that before. Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't that he was thinking differently, although that did come in recovery. But it was that the system was disrupted, that it couldn't be maintained anymore. If he could have maintained that system, he probably would still be drinking to this day. Okay. So that's what breaks the cycle, is the external factor that comes in and disrupts it. Something changes where the system can't be maintained anymore. Okay. So now that you've stopped drinking, we also have a sort of structural thing going on. What is it today that keeps you from going back to drinking?
Helping others. Like they have a saying in Alcoholics Anonymous is, you can't keep it unless you give it away, right? You can't, if you stop doing your program, stuff will keep creeping in, right? I pray, I have morning routines, I found hobbies. I love helping other alcoholics, especially newcomers. And that's, keeps my mind, occupied, right? Busy. I'm full-time student, full-time employee. So I'm busy, right? And you got to find hobbies too,
So when you say if you don't maintain your program, you'll lose it, what is your program?
I have morning routine, try to go to as many meetings a week as possible.
AA meetings?
Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. You have a sponsor, you have a support group, and you don't forget where you came from, right? You don't want to dwell in the past, but you don't want to forget where you came from, because sometimes it's hard to forget, but I don't want to go back to where I was, so I just keep it like that.
So notice what he's describing. It's not, I think differently than I used to. That is there, but it's a structural change. The structure that he has now. Do you hang out with your drinking buddies anymore?
No. I don't know. They're a mess, right? It's just not. It's not attractive, you could say. There's cursing going on. There's, just derogatory comments. It's just not what I want in life, And
do you think over time they would influence your resistance against drinking? Like being around them, being drunk and drinking all the time, and maybe encouraging you to get back into drinking?
With the amount of time I have, no. But early on in recovery, yes.
Okay. All right. So that's why you have to change your structure, right? And he makes a good point that the more experience you have, the better you get at this, the less strict of a structure you need. While he was in recovery at the Beacon House, he had a very strict structure. He had, and a lot of it. Okay. Every minute of his day was scheduled with groups and this and that. And the Beacon House has an amazing program. It's a very comprehensive program. He's always telling me more things about the program that I'm like, you guys had to do that. You're like, how did you have time in the day? Because they were doing so many things. And from a therapist's point of view, it's a very impressive program, which is not the case for all recovery programs, unfortunately. So he had a very strong structure, not only while he was in recovery, but even post-recovery, they maintained that structure. he can still go to events and he can still be around the people. Anytime he needs help, he can reach out. And so you can live there as long as you want after you've gone through the recovery treatment. And so they start with a very strong structure, and then they kind of loosen their grip on you. Let the little birdies fly, as they get better and better at recovery. Okay, so he's maintained this structure, and even now he still has a structure. What did you say about relapse being a process? It's not just something that happens.
So relapse is not when you pick up the first drink. It happens months before, maybe even like a year, right? You stop calling people, you stop helping people, you start maybe lying here and there, being sneaky here and there. Relapse happens prior to picking up that first drink.
So do you hear how he's describing the structure is crumbling? Okay, so the structure starts falling apart, it stops being maintained, and that starts the process towards relapse. Okay. And this is something that's important to understand for ourselves. Again, goes far beyond addiction. This is just an interesting example, but it's for all of us as well, that these biases and these errors in thinking that lock us into unhealthy beliefs happens to everybody because it's natural for the brain to work this way. Okay, this is normal for our brain. And so you have to create a structure around yourself that challenges you, that brings people in who hold you accountable. You create structures around you that helps to keep that system from becoming airtight and locking in those beliefs. So that, you have friends who believe different things than you. You don't just hang out on the same Reddit groups. You talk to people with varying beliefs. You have diversity in your life. And so those beliefs will get challenged. And of course, you have to maintain the mindset. I always say your first primary belief should be, I want to believe the truth. Okay? Not I want to believe a certain thing, but I want to believe what's true. And then you're more likely to create these structures around you that will challenge your beliefs so that you don't get locked in, because this is normal for how the brain works, okay? So you said that there's quite a lot of benefits to recovery. What would be the number one benefit?
So, you know how her last name is Phillips? That's my last name too. So I was able to marry my soulmate, and that's her right there. So I married I married the love of my life. So
Yeah, so this is my husband. So I'm very proud of him.
I had a feeling you
Yeah. All right, so any questions that you guys have for him? Make me proud, ask questions. Good.
What are your plans to resist the possible relapse? Is there in your mind?
That is a question I asked him as well.
If something happened, like a major problem or something, not that I'm saying that there's going to be a major problem, but how do you plan to resist? So that you don't go back?
that's a great question. We'll get that question asked a lot, but you can't fall back. You got to keep moving forward. Past when I was in treatment, and I was really close to her, and thank God I was in treatment, because I probably would have picked up instantly and probably drank for another year, 2 years. But luckily, someone in that program had lost someone in their life as well. So I asked them, how did you get through it? What did you do? And they have, they support you. They're there to support you. And one of them told me that something I will never forget is that where she's at, she knows where you're at. You're in the best place possible, and she's in the best place possible. And when this person told me that, I was just like, that's it, I'm safe, she knows I'm safe, she knew exactly where I'm at, and I know where she's at. She's in the best place possible. So, it's the support that I have, the structure. You just can't forget that you have people there that have your back.
Yeah, so
I'm not alone.
Yeah, so that means that you believe that if you have one person that will be by your side, you don't have to look at the distraction?
Make phone calls is what I have. That too. She helps a lot.
I
So.
do. Any other questions?
Another question, I understood that he said that you realized like in a moment that you needed the help, right? It was, you were tired and everything. Basically, get tired, trying to make that change in the person. So do you think that your beliefs on your recovery, that was something that actually made you to take that step? Or it was only personal, like you decided regarding what the family were saying?
So, I think I touched on it, but it didn't matter what my family told me. It had nothing. I was not going to listen to any of them. They told me till they were blue in the face. My brothers said that he said he gave up on me, so I couldn't. They started slowly taking things away from me. I couldn't see my nephews, my nieces, so they were taking it all the way. I was still drinking. So it had to come within me.
Do you think that it helped at all, or do you think it did the opposite?
It helped.
It did help?
It helped.
Okay.
Obviously not in the moment. Like, at first, like, I got sober because I was tired of scaring my mom half to death, right? That's really what got me into treatment. But slowly, I had to learn that I had to do it for myself and not anybody else. I had to do it for myself. So it didn't matter what got me in the treatment center. It could have been anything, right? As long as I got there and I heard the word, I heard, that little pebble was in my brain now, that it kept me there. But I had to do it for myself.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, do you think there could have been, or there would have been like a different outcome where he would have gone into treatment faster if you were arrested after like getting out?
Like gone straight to jail?
Yeah, because you said you like pulled over and your
Yeah.
mom didn't realize.
Oh, that right. Yeah.
You think if you would have gone to jail and like been purposely like.
Looking back, probably not, because I would have just been more resentful. It was the right time, right place, and
What about the first DUI?
Yeah,
You think that would have made a difference?
I think so, because I would have, I would have been sitting in jail. I don't know. Maybe not.
Maybe it might be worse.
Yeah, because I would have probably caught a resentment too.
Yeah.
Been like this, forget cops or whatever,
Or mad at your dad.
Didn't
Instant
Yeah.
you, something like that.
Yeah.
Do
See, that's hindsight bias in action.
Do you look forward in motivating yourself every day to structural change?
Yes. Because right before the class, I was doing homework for my grad school. So, I like schedules, so I schedule my day. I like making plans, and so I did. Yeah, I definitely have a structured life. Yes.
So you like the outcome now better?
Yeah, do you like the outcome now
Do you
better?
like the outcome?
Go ahead. You can ask her that
Yes,
question.
absolutely. Yes, he's loving life.
Yeah, we're happy. We're very happy.
Any other questions? Come on. Yeah.
Sorry, I like baseball too, so I was just like wondering.
I'm a Dodger fan. Yes.
Wait, show him the ring.
Oh yeah. So I've been to over, because my dad had season tickets for like 40 years, so I've been to like 500 or 600 Dodger games. But this ring actually has Game 5 dirt from the 2024 World Series in it. So
Custom designed wedding ring. Yes. Thank you.
yes, I am a Dodger fan. Yes. So,
That was a good day.
yes.
But,
Yes.
the question was, did like your coaches and your like scholarship, was that affected by the first DUI? Did they know about it?
They didn't know about the DUI, but my coach did. He was a spiritual guy too, so he did. But remember, I was the starting pitcher, so he couldn't bench me. you know. So
He was too
I know it's
good of a player to get consequences.
it might be a little arrogant, but it was the truth. Like, he didn't want to bench me because I'd show up to practice on Saturday morning, like just barely being able to walk, you know, just like, and I would just get there and run. But halfway through the practice, he told me to go to the office, and he came up there too, and he sat me down and said, "What's going on?" You know, so he knew what was going on, but the alcohol had a hold on me, so they knew, but I wasn't afraid of consequences. So.
Any other question? Somebody over here? Come on.
I don't know if it's okay to ask, but did you ever, you mentioned how you did the recovery and then you went to your mom and like apologize or give her the open to like vent to you? Did you ever do that to your dad?
Yes.
Yes? And
Yeah.
how did that go?
He's not really outspoken like that, right? But he was sad, right? He was sad that I let it get that far, and he was scared. Like, he didn't want to lose his son. He knew I had a big problem, but he was more of a naive person, you know? My mom knew what was going on. She just wanted to keep me alive until I got help. But my dad, I didn't see my dad a lot during those times, the last 2 years, because I was living with my mom.
Yes.
So he didn't know what was really going on. So he was just sad that I was putting my family through this stuff. So he was concerned.
Anybody else? No? All right. You guys enjoy that? Yeah? Okay. All right. Good job. All right. I will be nice and I'll let you guys out early today. It's your reward. Plus I get to go hang out with my husband.